The National Electrical Code, or NEC, outlines requirements for countertop space in bars, wet bars, and similar areas. A general rule is that countertop space within 2 feet of any sink or water source must have a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, outlet. The NEC does not specifically address countertop space in kitchens, but this 2-foot rule applies to any sinks or water sources in a kitchen area. GFCI protection is required for countertop spaces in outdoor areas where there is access to water. If the countertop on an island or peninsula has a sink or water source, the 2-foot rule applies to that area. The area where bar stools are placed should not interfere with the required GFCI protection zone. The GFCI protection zone around sinks and water sources is designed to minimize the risk of electrical shock or electrocution in the event of a ground fault. The 2-foot rule ensures that there is ample space for people to work safely around water sources without being exposed to potential hazards. There are some exceptions. Countertop space occupied by fixed appliances such as dishwashers or refrigerators that are not provided with a cord and plug is not required to have GFCI protection. The NEC allows for an exception to the 2-foot rule for kitchen sinks that are installed in isolated locations, such as on an island or peninsula, where the sink is not accessible from adjacent countertop space. In these cases, GFCI protection is required only if the sink has a disposal or other electrical equipment connected to it. To reiterate, the 2-foot rule for GFCI protection still applies to countertop space in bars, wet bars, and similar areas where sinks or water sources are present. This rule helps ensure the safety of individuals working or socializing in these areas. Understanding the NEC requirements involves several aspects. Firstly, determining the presence of a sink or water source on the countertop is important. Secondly, measuring the distance from the sink or water source to the edge of the countertop is key to identifying the area requiring GFCI protection. Thirdly, ensuring that GFCI outlets are readily accessible and not obstructed by furniture or other objects is crucial. Here's a deeper dive into specific situations. Firstly, consider a standard wet bar setup. If a sink is installed in a countertop, measure 2 feet in all directions from the edge of the sink. All receptacles within this 2-foot zone must be GFCI protected. This includes outlets on the wall directly behind the countertop if they fall within the 2-foot radius. Secondly, consider an outdoor kitchen. All countertop receptacles in an outdoor kitchen setting must have GFCI protection due to the increased risk of moisture exposure. This includes receptacles under cabinets, on islands, and those used for portable appliances. Thirdly, consider an island with a sink. If an island countertop contains a sink, the 2-foot rule applies to all receptacles along the entire island countertop, not just those immediately adjacent to the sink. Consider the impact of bar stools. The placement of bar stools should never impede access to GFCI-protected receptacles. Ensure that bar stools can be easily moved to access these outlets for testing and maintenance. Let's explore the exceptions in more detail. Firstly, fixed appliances, dishwashers, garbage disposals, and built-in refrigerators are often hardwired and do not require GFCI protection at the receptacle. However, these appliances must still meet other safety requirements and be properly grounded. Secondly, isolated sinks. If a sink is located on an island or peninsula and is not accessible from adjacent countertops, GFCI protection is only required if the sink has a disposal or other electrical equipment. However, local codes may have more stringent requirements, so check with your local electrical inspector. The importance of GFCI protection cannot be overstated. A GFCI monitors the current flowing through a circuit. If it detects any leakage current indicating a potential ground fault, it quickly cuts off the power to prevent electrical shock. This can happen if an appliance malfunctions or if water comes into contact with electrical components. Ensuring compliance with NEC and local electrical codes is essential. It's recommended to consult with a licensed electrician to ensure proper installation and adherence to all applicable regulations. This is especially important when designing or remodeling a bar or wet bar area. Always test GFCI outlets regularly to ensure they are functioning correctly. Press the test button on the outlet, and it should trip, cutting off power to the circuit. If it doesn't trip, the outlet needs to be replaced. Consider using a GFCI tester, which plugs into the outlet and verifies its functionality with a simple test. These testers are readily available and easy to use. Here are some key safety tips. Firstly, never bypass or disable GFCI protection. It is there to protect you from electrical shock. Secondly, keep electrical appliances and cords away from water. This is especially important in bar and wet bar areas where spills are common. Thirdly, regularly inspect electrical cords and appliances for damage. Replace any damaged items immediately. By following these guidelines, you can create a safe and compliant bar or wet bar area that meets the requirements of the NEC and protects against electrical hazards. Here are some additional considerations that often come up. Firstly, what about under cabinet lighting? If under cabinet lighting is installed above a countertop with a sink, the receptacles powering the lighting should also be GFCI protected. Secondly, what about portable appliances? Any portable appliances used on the countertop, such as blenders or ice makers, should be plugged into GFCI protected receptacles. Thirdly, what about extension cords? Avoid using extension cords in bar and wet bar areas if possible. If you must use one, make sure it is heavy duty and rated for the intended use. Also, ensure it is plugged into a GFCI protected receptacle. Think about the placement of receptacles. Receptacles should be positioned in a way that minimizes the risk of water exposure. Avoid placing them directly above or behind the sink. Also, consider using tamper-resistant receptacles, especially if children are present. These receptacles have a built-in shutter mechanism that prevents objects from being inserted into the slots. Here are some points about renovating or remodeling. If you are renovating or remodeling a bar or wet bar area, now is the perfect time to upgrade the electrical system to meet current code requirements. This includes installing GFCI protection when needed and ensuring that all wiring is up to date. Remember that local codes may have additional requirements beyond the NEC. Always check with your local electrical inspector to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Understanding the intricacies of GFCI protection and the NEC requirements can seem daunting, but it is essential for ensuring safety and compliance. By following the guidelines outlined in this explanation, you can create a bar or wet bar area that is both functional and safe. Moreover, consider future needs when planning your electrical layout. Account for the potential addition of new appliances or equipment and ensure that you have enough receptacles to meet your needs. Avoid overloading circuits, as this can create a fire hazard. Here is some information about circuit overloading. Each circuit has a maximum ampacity rating. Exceeding this rating can cause the circuit breaker to trip or, in severe cases, start a fire. Be mindful of the total wattage of all appliances and equipment plugged into a circuit. Understanding the terminology used in NEC is also beneficial. Firstly, receptacle is an electrical outlet that provides power to appliances and equipment. Secondly, GFCI or ground fault circuit interrupter is a device that protects against electrical shock by monitoring the current flowing through a circuit. Thirdly, branch circuit is a circuit that extends from the panel board to the receptacle. This information provides a comprehensive understanding of GFCI protection requirements for bar countertops, wet bars, and similar areas, drawing from the NEC guidelines. Here's a summary. Firstly, countertop space within 2 feet of a sink or water source requires GFCI protection. Secondly, this rule applies to bars, wet bars, kitchens, and outdoor areas. Thirdly, exceptions exist for fixed appliances and isolated sinks under specific conditions. Fourthly, compliance ensures safety and prevents electrical shock. Fifthly, consulting a licensed electrician and adhering to local codes is crucial. In addition to the NEC, other standards and regulations may apply. Firstly, UL or Underwriters Laboratories is a safety certification organization that tests and certifies electrical products. Secondly, ANSI or American National Standards Institute is an organization that develops and publishes voluntary consensus standards for a wide range of products and industries. Thirdly, local building codes may have additional requirements or restrictions. When planning your bar or wet bar area, consider the overall design and functionality. Ensure that the layout is safe and convenient to use and that all electrical components are properly installed and maintained. Remember that electrical safety is an ongoing process. Regularly inspect your electrical system and address any issues promptly. By taking these steps, you can create a safe and enjoyable space for entertaining and socializing. A final point is to document all electrical work. Keep records of all electrical installations and inspections, including permits, diagrams, and test results. This documentation can be helpful for future maintenance and repairs.